Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. Very exciting stuff. I've really enjoyed putting this podcast out, obviously with all the sports topics and sports leagues and teams and all the crazy stuff that's going on this time of year with the playoffs, and UFC has an event every month, every other week it seems like. So I'm very excited to give my take on what the former women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey needs to do for her future, or in the future, for the time being, what she needs to do. Just my advice to Ronda Rousey. Not that she would listen, but hopefully you guys do. You listen to my takes pretty often on other sports topics. I'd like to give you guys my take on this sports topic. Ronda Rousey possibly retiring. What do I think she needs to do? So, okay. There is two options. Option one, she retires, does the movies, does the Pantene commercials, does all the Hollywood glitz glamour stuff. Option two, she comes back, announces that she is going to continue to fight, and makes a major announcement that she will be switching camps. She'll be leaving Glendale Boxing Academy and going to Team Alpha Male in California with Paige Van Zandt, with Uriah Faber, with the new champ Cody Garbrandt. I think that is the best fit for Ronda Rousey. It's in California. Uriah Faber and her are apparently pretty close, pretty good friends. It would really be a mark on Uriah Faber's legacy as well, which it would be his first mark post-retirement. And if anybody knows what it's like to go through devastating losses in title fights, it's Uriah Faber, in all seriousness. On the UFC scale of things, in the UFC days, Uriah Faber did not... He worked his way up constantly just to get knocked back down. And I think that could be an option for Ronda Rousey. Jackson's is obviously not, because Holly Holm is there, Michelle Waterson is there. I think it would make sense for her to train with someone like Paige Van Zandt. I know they had their little tiff or whatever, but that's just politics. That's just banter within the fighting world. I think that Ronda Rousey needs to change camps. If she is going to continue fighting, it's the only way that she will find success. I think this Edmond Trevathan guy is a disaster for her camp. I think he's a disaster for her career. I think for a long time, what she was doing was good enough. What she is her basic skill in judo was good enough against the fighters that she was fighting against. The tough and difficult matchups that were right in front of her did tend to go her way. And the main matchup that comes to mind is the Cat Zingano fight, where most people thought Cat Zingano would be her biggest threat to her title. They would literally say that's the girl that'll eventually beat Ronda Rousey. And Cat Zingano just ran right after Ronda with reckless abandon and put, the pressure right on Ronda, and Ronda just turned her over, hip tossed her, and eventually armbarred her. So, that happened, and it really wasn't supposed to. Not to say that Cat Zingano was going to win that fight, but that did happen. There were matchups that were difficult for her that she was able to get past. And I've listened to Chael Sonnen's podcast, and I've listened to Joe Rogan's podcast. I've listened to Brendan Schaub kind of dissect the rise and the fall of Ronda Rousey. And people talk as if she wasn't legit. And it's easy to say that now because she's lost via TKO 2 fights in a row, both vicious in their own separate ways. Holly Holm picked her apart. Amanda Nunes went through her like a buzzsaw. So it is what it is. But to say that those fights didn't happen, where she was armbarring girls and submitting them, choking them out, that did happen. She was the baddest chick on the planet for a better part of 3-4 years between Strikeforce and the UFC. She did defend her belt 6 times, which is incredible in this sport. And I respect her for that. She did become a victim of her own hype. She did buy in to what the media was saying about her. Worse than that, she wore her career on her sleeve. Her performance, she let her performance in the cage embody who she was outside the cage. And that is a big no-no, because as soon as she lost, it really destroyed her whole personality. She let fighting dictate who she actually was, which that is who she is. She's a fighter. But in the sense that when she was winning, she carried it on her shoulder. She was on a high horse. And when she lost, she was not. She fell off the horse hard on her, landed on her face, due in large part to the fact that she was on a high horse. And everyone knew what she was thinking. Everyone knew that she was confident. Everyone knew that she wanted to retire undefeated. Everyone knew that she was somebody that was fighting for every woman out there. She was the pillar, the beacon for women in women's fighting. And, well, women's fighting in the UFC, I should say. Because there were people before her. She was not the first. She was the first to bring it to a mainstream level within the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I never did think I'd see the day where women were in the UFC. But there was that time. And she ran through everybody. Every great champion, every single great champion has a rise to become the champion, and they have a really, really hard fall. Sometimes they have speed bumps, sometimes they don't. Anderson Silva quickly rose up the ladder, fought Rich Franklin, fought Chris Lieben, then Rich Franklin, won the title in devastating fashion versus Rich Franklin, and beat Rich Franklin again. Then defended his belt against a who's who of the middleweight division, Dan Henderson, Chael Sonnen, winning that Chael Sonnen fight in miraculous fashion. Yushin Okami, the Damian Maia fight happened, the Talis Leites fight happened, the Patrick Cote fight happened. So there's some gray area there, but at the end of the day, his persona and what he would use to his advantage in a fight actually became his downfall. And most people that were not fans of Anderson Silva thought that that would eventually happen. And even people that were fans of Anderson Silva thought that that could eventually happen as he got older. Chuck Liddell is another guy that comes to mind. He was the king of the UFC. He was the face of mixed martial arts for so many years. In the coming up years of mixed martial arts, he was the real face of the UFC that put it to the mainstream. And as soon as his sprawl and brawl style wore on him, taxed his body was shot. He could not handle a punch. He could not take a punch because he took so many at a young age throughout his career for a long time. And it finally just caught up to him, and he did not have it anymore. I think Chuck Liddell was knocked out in 4 of his last 5 fights, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 3 of his last 5. But Rich Franklin is a guy. He was one of the faces of the UFC. He ran into Anderson Silva and really never regained any championship ground after he had lost to Anderson Silva twice. It was basically a career death sentence. He fought the big name, legend matchups with Chuck Liddell and Dan Henderson, but Vanderlei Silva too, but he really didn't have that champion, pedigree anymore. And that could be the territory that Ronda Rousey is approaching. She's not outside of the top 5. She took a year off. Right now, I believe on the UFC.com rankings, she's ranked 4th. So it's not over. If she wanted to come back, she could come back. I just think that the only way for her to come back and be successful and possibly regain her belt back, she would have to change camps, go to another gym, and really regroup. There is way too much happening within the sport of mixed martial arts. There's way too much evolving going on within the, not too much I should say, but there's a lot of evolving going on within the UFC women's bantamweight division, and that is in large part the reason why Ronda Rousey is in the position that she's in. The girls that she lost to, Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes, are two of the best female fighters in the world. Amanda Nunes obviously is the champion. Even before she was the champion, she was waiting in the wings to take what Ronda had. She was actually supposed to get the title shot against Ronda when Ronda was the champion. Ronda and the UFC made the, quote, sexy matchup with her and Holly Holm because Holly Holm had the boxing pedigree. It was an easy sell, the boxer versus the grappler, and we saw what happened. Holly Holm is now vying for the women's featherweight title, the newest weight division within the UFC, the inaugural women's featherweight championship, which is a belt that she's actually going to have to go into a cage and earn. This isn't going to be handed to her like it was when the UFC absorbed Strikeforce and handed Ronda Rousey the belt, being the fact that she was the Strikeforce women's champion. So there's a lot there. At one point, people were talking about how Ronda could beat Floyd Mayweather, which is ridiculous. The fact that people talk about how Conor McGregor could beat Floyd Mayweather is in its own realm ridiculous for the reasons that it is. I think that people really let the media mold their mind, change their perspective on what is and what isn't reality. And when a fighter is on the rise and they start to win in the fashion that they win, they have this allure around that surrounds them that fans gravitate to. And they wonder, could he beat this guy? Could he beat this guy? It's just the same people that make those comparisons are the same people that argue whether Batman or Superman could win a fight. It's just not realistic. It's not reality. Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor are never going to fight. I'm fully confident in saying that. And Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are never going to fight. Ronda Rousey and Cyborg are never going to fight. That ship has sailed. The ship sailed before it even reached the dock. So, or before it even took off on the dock. So, it's just really frustrating when you hear things like that. And that ship sailed fast away before it even was set out to sea, I should say. And I'm really hopeful that, I don't read the same things about Ronda Rousey that I did when she lost to Holly Holm. I think we all are. She went through some real dark days when she lost to Holly Holm. And part of that is the fans rooting for her to fail, but they rooted for her to fail because of the fact that she was winning constantly. And she was not gracious when she won. She did not show that she was a gracious champion. So that is what I think Ronda Rousey should do. People have emailed me at the Thomas Take podcast email. It's thomastake92@gmail.com, by the way. You can also check this stuff out on YouTube. Every single episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, all 75 episodes, are on YouTube. I really hope you guys subscribe. Also on Facebook.com, there's a Facebook page, Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Please like that page. If you guys want alerts for this podcast, follow it on Spreaker.com. Or like my Facebook page. I would really appreciate it. I really enjoy this, and I want to continue doing it for a long time. So there is my take on Ronda Rousey. What should she do next if she were to stay in the sport of mixed martial arts? What should she do? Should she continue to fight? If she does not want to retire, which I don't think she does. I think she wants to stick around, and I think that she will stick around. Take care, guys.